screaming, yelling, getting upset more than what you ever did before. Really being down, being frustrated, feeling like they're crazy of like, how in the world could I respond this way? How could I react to how he was treating me? Did you ever feel like that person was just like poking you and like prodding you and like goading you to actually like react or respond a certain way? A narcissist is dependent on your reaction or your response or this piece of you showing them something. Hey guys, this is Ben Taylor with Raw Motivations. I wanted to come on here and talk to you some today about reactive abuse. I was talking to somebody the other day in one of my one-on-one calls, and they were talking about how it just seemed so frustrating looking back on the situation, on the life they'd lived with the narcissist, with the toxic person, and seeing and acknowledging everything that they've done in that relationship. And really being down, being frustrated, feeling like they're crazy of like, how in the world could I respond this way? How could I react to how he was treating me, to how she was treating me? Like the thoughts that people start thinking, like when they start looking at like a video or a picture or, you know, something that shows them like, hey, this is how I responded in that situation, sometimes makes them feel crazy, or sometimes makes them wonder like, was it me? Am I the problem? You've probably been in a situation like this where you've looked back and you've been like, I don't normally respond this way, but I responded this way to this person. And one, either I feel crazy or I just feel like bad. I feel stupid. I feel all these types of emotions that you're like, this isn't me. Why am I doing this? You might have been involved in something called reactive abuse. Reactive abuse in the psychopath, sociopath, toxic, narcissistic minefield is the idea of where the narcissist push you to the edge, push you to the place, push you past sanity in one sense, push you to the place where you are going to react, where there's going to be a reaction that happens. Now, it could be something as simple, or it could be something that's huge, but what it is pushing something. It's like pushing your buttons, getting to the place where they're pushing your buttons so much that it gets to the place where you just lash out, where you respond, where you all of a sudden come back at them and out of a way that you would never do with anyone else. This is why oftentimes in the relationship, the person who's being abused starts to think like, maybe I'm the problem because of how the narcissist is treating them, or how the narcissist is saying like, you're the one that needs to get help. You're the one that needs to get checked out. Like there's something wrong with you. But when you take a moment and you step back and you start to think like, wait a second, like how I was yelling, how I was reacting, how I was, defending myself, whatever it might be, like how I was acting that moment, do I act that way to everybody else in my life? A lot of times people will start to realize like, hey, I'm acting that way only around this person, or I'm acting that way only through this set of events. But the narcissist doesn't want you to see that. They don't want you to hear that or understand like, hey, this is what's actually happening. What they're trying to do is keep you off guard, kind of push you off kilter so that you're not able to actually assess what's going on. This oftentimes happens with the cognitive dissonance that they give by pushing, pulling, giving praise, giving devaluation, telling that they care about you, then showing the exact opposite. And when they do that time and time again, it produces that confused state in your mind of not knowing what's going on. When they push you so far to the place where you start to react, that's where it turns into reactive abuse. Now, if you've experienced reactive abuse or you've been privy to reactive abuse, you probably get to the place where you start to feel really discouraged and you start to blame yourself. What you have to remember is in that moment, you didn't have the education or knowledge to know what was happening. A lot of times people look back on those moments and like, I can't believe I reacted that way. But in that moment, you didn't understand what was going on, or you didn't have a chance to actually view what the situation was or what the trauma that was happening that in the moment just seemed very crazy, very out of yourself. So in one sense, looking back, you didn't have the education to know what was going on. Two, you had the aspect of going back in that situation, looking back at that situation, you didn't realize the manipulation that was happening. In the moment, that manipulation is so small, so ingrained in the moment that it doesn't seem like anyone's manipulating you at all. It just seems like, hey, this is a reaction that I'm having. I don't understand why my reaction's bigger than what it used to be in the past. Well, it's because that reaction was triggered by numerous attempts from the narcissist to manipulate, to control, to gaslight, to push you to that place where you just snap, where you respond that way. So looking back, the education, looking back, the manipulation, and then giving yourself like grace in the moment. Because oftentimes people either doubt like, hey, why in the world did I stay so long in this relationship? Or why did I react that way? Or how could I have done this in the past? What you have to think about is in the moment, you didn't have that knowledge. You didn't have that awareness. You didn't have that baseline of understanding, hey, this is what I've gone through. This is what's actually happening. Think of it this way, like when you start school and say you're, in the second grade, you're not performing algebra and trigonometry questions, but you get farther up, you get into high school and you're starting to perform those. You're starting to learn about those. You're starting to implement those into your schoolwork. Okay, it would be like the idea of in high school being like how stupid I was back in second grade because I wasn't doing algebra functions. That's the thought process. That what's actually happening is when you look back on the past and you're like, I can't believe I acted that way. How stupid was I for acting that way? Part of it was you didn't have that knowledge. You didn't have that understanding of what was actually going on. And you need to take a pause and you need to give yourself a rest and a break when you think about that. A lot of times you also have to realize you're not alone. You see, the narcissist wants to isolate and make you think that how you're reacting is not typical at all. Countless times whenever I'm talking to people on one-on-ones and they're explaining the behaviors, the reactions, they're explaining how they feel, they're explaining like the craziness in their head of just wanting to go back to another person, the trauma bond, all this type of stuff. Sometimes I have to sit them down and I have to say, hey, what you're going through right now, what you're experiencing, unfortunately, is completely normal. And sometimes that kind of catches people off guard. I'm like, it's completely normal based on the circumstances that you're in, based on everything that's happening around you, based on the chaos that's been orchestrated by another person. So often we want to devalue and say, hey, what's going on? That's not normal. When in reality, a lot of times people's reaction, people's frustration, people's tears, people's emotions, people's overreacting is actually normal. But the narcissist has trained us in so many different ways that it's not normal. That you're the crazy one, that you're the one that needs help, that you're the frustrating one, that you're, and name whatever you want to name, that's what they'll try to put back on you. So you have to understand in this moment, based on the circumstances that you've gone through, if you've had a reactive abuse, if you've been the one reacting in that abusive way because of another person manipulating you, that's actually normal for those type of situations. You also have to realize you're not the only one who's had reactive abuse, who's reacted to that abuse in an abusive way. There's many people out there that have had the same story, the same thought process, the same manipulation that's led up to them screaming, yelling, hitting, punching the other person, when in reality that's not them, and that's never been them. But they've been put in that situation that the narcissist has used and manipulated and gaslit and pushed them so far that they snap and they react that way. If that's you, I want to encourage you today. 1, you're not crazy. 2, you're not alone. And 3, there's help. There's help to be able to work through those stories that you're telling yourself, those past memories that you're going through. If you don't know much about me or my content, with being on here as a self-aware narcissist, I try to give people insight into the narcissist mind. I try to give people insight to the things that I struggle with, to the things that I've been through. And as I work with people on a day-to-day basis, I try to maybe to touch on 3 main topics. And that's the idea of the trauma bond, that's the idea of detoxing from the narcissist, and that's the idea of clarity and vision. And so as we work through these different sections, like day by day, piece by piece, we're able to acknowledge like, hey, when you're stuck in that trauma bond, and you might be stuck in a trauma bond. The trauma bond is the idea of where you know in your head, hey, this person's toxic for me, but you feel in your heart or your emotions that you just want to be with them, see them, feel them, touch them, hug them, experience some aspect of life with them. And oftentimes that trauma bond is based on cognitive dissonance, hope, or potential, thinking that something will happen or something will change in that aspect. And as I work with people, we break down the story. And as people learn the tools that I try to give them of breaking down the story, rewiring their mind with the new story based on the facts, it's amazing to see how encouraging it is for them to see that change and growth really quickly. Right before I did this video, I got off a call with someone that came in and they said, hey, I took the news story, I implemented it everywhere. It was everywhere. It was on my fridge, it was in the kitchen, it was on the table, it was on my nightstand, it was on my mirrors, it was on my phone. Like, I put it everywhere. And she said, the change that I've had in the past month has been incredible. That's what I'm trying to help people, is provide awareness, growth, healing, and change. That's why I'm on this platform. If you don't know much about the other platforms that I have, we've got Nuggets of Truth that's dropping every single day on TikTok, Instagram, obviously here on YouTube as well, also on Facebook. So feel free to join any of those platforms, interact with other survivors. There is a community that is growing and starting to thrive more, which is called the NARC app, NARC, Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Community. And it's a group of like-minded people that are survivors that are coming out of these relationships and that are finding healing, growth, and change, and learning and implementing those changes in their lives on a day-to-day basis. So feel free to check out the NARC app, download it from Apple or Google Play. We're starting to go live exclusively on the app every single Monday night, and we're also starting to do monthly Zoom calls depending on when you sign up or what level you sign up. So please check out the NARC app. There's a lot of people on there where they're trying to help provide the tools and the resources on a weekly and on a monthly basis as well. Thanks so much. Did you ever feel like that person was just like poking you and like prodding you and like goading you to actually like react or respond a certain way? You might be dealing with someone who might be toxic, that might actually be trying to purposely put you in a space where you show up in a reactive way, maybe with reactive abuse, maybe with yelling or lashing out, whatever it might be. You might be struggling with a certain type of person that could possibly be a narcissist. If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness, growth, healing, change, and development. I'm the founder of Raw Motivations, the creator of the NARC app, and your guide in the Escape Toxicity, the 7-day challenge to healing that you can access at escapetoxicity.com. If you want to be able to check out some of the stuff that we're doing on a day-to-day basis, then hit the subscribe notification. Hit that notification bell so that you actually get notified when we drop new videos, when we do live question and answers, and when we just have different pieces that you can be a part of inside the community of this healing journey that you're trying to be on, of this growth mindset that you're trying to develop. Because it is really hard when you're with a toxic person to wonder what is actually going on the other side. Like, do they actually understand what they're doing? Do they actually see how it's hurting me, how it's impacting me? And narcissists make you react. Like, just hands down, like, they make you react. They make you respond to them in so many different ways that end up being where they are controlling your responses. They're controlling or prompting the things that you're going to do. Sometimes that comes out in lashing out, in reactive abuse, and yelling and screaming back to them. And you start to question yourself, like, wait a second, am I the narcissist here? Because I've never acted this way before. I've never responded this way. But do they actually know that they're pushing you? Do they actually know that they're trying to push you in the direction of this type of reaction? Well, what I want to talk to you about today is when a narcissist gets you to react, do they actually care? Why? What's actually going on underneath that? And then what to do about it. All right, so when we talk about reacting to a narcissist, we kind of laid the groundwork somewhat that it is a common thing to do. It's common because of how they treat you. Because they get to the place where they're starting to slowly just push your button time after time after time. Maybe doing the same exact thing. Maybe pushing your boundaries in a certain way. Maybe it's where they are pulling back from giving different compliments or ideas or thoughts, or starting to belittle you for the small things that you're doing that they want to say is wrong or is out of character, or is out of alignment, whatever it might be. So they're trying to be able to bring you down and attack. Over a period of time, this can be something that slowly eats at you and slowly holds you back, and it gets to the place where you just like feel like you have to break free. And oftentimes this will come in bottling it up and then lashing back out of like, I can't believe this is finally happening. Because you have to deal with so much. You have to deal with a narcissist accusing you that you're the wrong one, that you're the toxic one, that you're the cheater. You have the narcissist that's lying to you time after time after time again, that you don't even understand the truth. Sometimes we see some of the biggest reactions come from the victim and the survivor from a narcissist that gives them the silent treatment. Like, can you imagine like talking to your best friend and then your best friend just stops talking to you for like 3 weeks straight? And it's not that you don't see them, it's that you interact, you walk by them, you try to interact with them every single day, and you get to the place where you're just like, why won't you just talk to me? Like, you just want to grab them, like shake them, be like, why won't you just talk to me? That's the kind of thing that's happening times 100 with a narcissistic person. Because you'll see the silent treatment get to someone and make them react and respond in almost like a crazy like fashion because that person prompted that. To put them in a crazy making situation. Put them in a situation where it's like, what else are you going to do? And so oftentimes the narcissist will turn it around, will blame you, will put it on you, and they start to just keep poking and poking and poking and poking until they get a reaction. Till they get a blow up, till they get some type of a response, till they get something out of you. So the big question that people ask is, do they actually know what they're doing? Do they actually know that what they're doing is making you react, is making you respond a certain way? The short answer to that question is yes, they do. There's an aspect of knowing and understanding the consequences of a person's actions, but not willing to be able to take accountability and responsibility for it. So a narcissist will do anything they can to be able to keep their image or control or power over another person, even if that means they have to make them feel crazy. We normally see this the most in the aspect of gaslighting, convincing a person that their reality doesn't actually exist. What they saw, what they envisioned, isn't actually there. And so typically a narcissist will try to do anything they can to keep you in submission to them and keep them in control. Now, when we're talking about this aspect of do they actually know that they're doing it, you have to understand and you have to look at it from a big picture is like, first off, the majority of the time it's done in private. It's something that happens in the confines of the home that no one else can see. Now you have some that are raging out in public, totally get that, and a lot of overts do that. But when we talk about coverts, which I feel like there's a lot more than people want to realize with covert narcissism, a lot of it is done in private. It's stuff that keeps you isolated from other people. It keeps you hidden from other people of like, okay, like this is happening, but now I can't talk about it because I already told everybody it's a good relationship. Now I feel like I feel dumb that I'm even saying that we have issues because like it's been so good. And it starts to confuse, but there's an aspect like they know that they're doing it because they're doing it in private. They're not doing it out in public. One aspect of knowing that they're doing it is this thing called dog whistling. Dog whistling is where a narcissist will communicate and attack and poke and prod to you in one specific area. And then when you're in public, they'll bring that specific area up, but not necessarily attached to you, but just in general. And it belittles and it puts you down and sometimes makes you react in public about something that they said that didn't have to everybody else, didn't have direct correlation to you, but you know it's to you because of what they've always done in private. It's this piece of triggering you, of pushing you past a certain limit because of what they've been saying to you for a period of time. Oftentimes you have to understand this is only done to you. Narcissist doesn't always do this to every single person. Will they do it sometimes to other people? Yes. But I'm saying a lot of times we have a narcissist that will specifically do it to one person. Typically the person closest to them. Typically the person that is seen below the mask. And oftentimes the goal here is to shame the person, to get that other person to react, to get a response out of the other person as an aspect of power and control. Which leads us to our next section of why do they actually do it? They do it out of power and control, to push you to do something. And then you do it, that reaction shows them, I just got them to do something. I just crossed their boundaries. I just made them cross their boundaries. There's this power dynamic of you doing something that you don't want to do. And when a narcissist is able to take you to a certain spot and then be like pushing you just a little bit more, and then you act out, you do something that is not normal, that's incongruent with who you actually are, they view it as a power trip. I just made them do something that they didn't want to do. I just made them do something that they never would have done. I just controlled an outcome. You see, there's a power dynamic that plays here. And the power dynamic that happens is this idea of the narcissist saying, like, I have dominance over you. I did this. I am in control. Narcissist doesn't always control you just to control you. A lot of times narcissist controls you because of how it makes them look in public. There's this aspect of having the mask and the narcissist having this version of themselves that everybody else sees, and they have to be able to control you to support, uphold, defend the mask that they're putting out there. So they do that oftentimes out of manipulation and control to make sure that you're supporting that. That power piece is them showing dominance. I'm actually good enough, big enough, the best, the ego, all that stuff. Like, I'm amazing because I can do this. Is that hurting and degrading to another person? Yes, but I don't care. I just care about me. Like, that's the idea. The control piece is this aspect of feeling better about myself because I put you down. Okay, so the control is, again, another power dynamic. But the narcissist is like, hey, I feel better about myself because I've made you be a little bit lower. Oftentimes we see this when a narcissist gets with someone who is, let's say, high status or high money or whatever it might be. And they get with this person, they're like thinking, oh man, once I get with this person, I'm going to have the same amount of money. I'm going to have the same amount of respect. I'm going to have all this kind of stuff. This is like the logic, the idea of like, if I get with this person, it'll help me level up. It'll help me be better in a certain aspect. It'll help me look better in a certain aspect. Then we get with that person and they're like, crap, it doesn't. I'm still the same person. But that person seems so much better than me, so I got to bring them down. I got to bring them down to my level. I got to control them. I got to feel better about myself because they're below me. And it's taking that ego and that mask and it's trying to be like, okay, this is who they actually are. They're underneath me. Maybe you're at the place where you're separated from the toxic person and you're still reacting to them. You're still responding to them. They're coming at you. They're blaming you for something. They're coming at you and they're saying something about you, accusatory, whatever it might be, and you're still giving them a reaction. What I need you to understand, like loud and clear, is when you're separated from a narcissist and you're still in contact, which is why we say no contact, and you're still in contact and you are reacting to them, you are giving them supply. You are making the addiction worse, that they're going to stick around even longer. And here's the skewed up part that most people don't understand and don't realize, because it is skewed up in the narcissist's mind of how it actually works. When a narcissist pokes and prods you, when you're separated, when you're broken up, they don't think that in their mind. When you're broken up and they push and prod you and you react and you respond, you know what it tells them? This is what it tells them, exactly this. You still want me. And you're like, no, that doesn't mean that way. It can't mean that. That's how they think. If you get anything from this video, you need to understand when you're away from a narcissist and they get you to react, you are feeding them even more. You are saying, come get me. Literally, that's how a lot of times it is interpreted and twisted around, that the narcissist is like, oh, this person is obsessed with me. That means they want me. No, this person hates you and they want you out of their life, but they're not sure how to be able to pull away. And so when you continue to react, when you continue to respond to this person, it feeds that even more. Please understand that and hear that loud and clear. In talking through this aspect, then what do you do? How do we actually respond? What do we actually go through? You need to understand their game. It's a game to get you to react. So you have to learn how to control the reaction, which means you have to stop playing the game. A narcissist views you as a vending machine, and they can walk up to you at any single time, press a button, and get a candy bar, get a soda. And the thing is, every single time they walk up, they either press a button and they get the candy bar that they want, or they get a brand new one. It's a surprise every single time. And they don't have to pay for it. All they have to do is just walk up to you, press a certain button, and they get something out. In that illustration, if you can wrap your mind around that illustration, why would they stop? Typically, a narcissist is not going to stop if they are getting the reaction they desire out of you. So you need to understand to stop playing the game. Reacting only adds fuel to the fire. It increases that addiction. It increases that aspect of, oh, the narcissist just got what they want from you, and they just come back later when they want some more. And it shows you right then and there that the narcissist, the toxic person, knows, and it shows that they don't care. You know at this point they absolutely do not care about you because they're only coming for that reaction.
Now you might be kind of pushing back still a little bit and being like, but they said they didn't intend to hurt me. Like they said they weren't trying to. They said like that wasn't their intent or anything. And we need to take a pause real quick. We need to understand if the narcissist is telling you, hey, I never intended to hurt you, and they've hurt you a bunch of times, and they said like, I never intended to hurt you. You need to understand the opposite piece. You also never intended not to hurt me. You never made any plans or preparations or changed some of your actions and behaviors in a way to show that you weren't going to hurt me, but instead you hurt me by making these choices. Maybe the exact intent wasn't to attack and wasn't to hurt, but there also wasn't any intent to protect, to love, to care, and to demonstrate that. If you're struggling with some of this today, I'd ask you to reach out for help. If you want to talk to me one-on-one, you can go to rawmotivations.com, click on the one-on-ones. If you want to actually break free, mindset, emotions, go to escapetoxicity.com. It's a 7-day challenge for healing to be able to help guide you through the hard truths that you need to understand. You need to learn some things that we've talked about in here, like you need to be able to understand so that you can be free and move forward in your healing, growth, change, and development.
Screaming, yelling, getting upset more than what you ever did before. Did you ever find yourself acting out of character when you're with this other person? Did you ever find yourself screaming, yelling, getting upset more than what you ever did before? Well, you might have been dealing with someone who is toxic, or you might have been dealing with a narcissist, sociopath, psychopath, whoever. And you might have been dealing with something called reactive abuse. If you're new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this platform to provide awareness, growth, healing, and change. And the goal is to be able to help people understand what narcissism actually is, what it looks like, how it affects other people, how it destroys lives, how it destroys relationships and interactions at work, and countless different ways how it affects different people. Also to provide awareness, growth, healing, and change in the fact of growing other people, helping other people not just understand what it is, but then how do we grow from it? How do we break free from the trauma bond? How do we work through the rumination phase of always thinking about the narcissist? And how do we build healthy vision and values going forward so that we don't go back with a narcissist, or we don't get with a narcissist down the road? A lot of different things to be able to think about, but that's what we try to do. We do that by dropping nuggets of truth on all different platforms. So if you don't follow me on some of the other ones, then go to TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, or if you're on the podcast, thanks so much for listening. We're on everything underneath Raw Motivation. So check us out there. Thanks so much. If you haven't had a chance, download the NARC app. We have a lot of people that have been downloading that and getting onto that. It's got courses, it's got a way to track your no contact, a way to ask advice from other survivors and people that are working through the same kind of stuff or that have been through the same stuff that you have. Be at a place for community, a place where we can all interact and try to help people grow, change, heal, develop, and continue to move forward. There's also weekly lives where you can actually come on screen, ask questions, share part of your story, interact with other survivors. And we also have monthly coaching where it's myself and other coaches from around the country that we bring in to be able to help encourage you of how are you going to continue that growth moving forward? How are you going to continue to develop yourself, not just in the narcissistic type of relationship or getting out of that abusive relationship, but moving forward? How are you going to develop yourself into your mindset, your intentionality, your aliveness of how you're going to bring the joy in your life down the road when it feels like it's impossible to see that now? And trying to show people a different future, a different idea of what's actually possible down the road. So check that out. It's under Google or Apple Store under NARC. NARC stands for Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Community, NARC. So check out and download the app today. I wanted to talk to you today about reactive abuse. Reactive abuse. So when you think of the word, think of reaction, okay? Reaction is the response to someone's action. A lot of times when we look at the word and we look at reactive abuse, it kind of feels like it kind of feels like a little bad. Like I don't want to actually approach that or talk about that or deal with that, or that's not me. But when it comes down to it, everybody always looks at the reaction, right? Like they always see like, whoa, like that person just responded this way or they just reacted like this. But a lot of times we don't take a step back and look at the action that caused the reaction. This is what happens in narcissistic relationships where a person pushes another person to react, okay? It's a reaction to something that has already happened.
A lot of times you're going to see this in toxic relationships of the other person poking and prodding and pushing in certain little areas. Sometimes those areas can be huge, sometimes those areas can be really small. Easiest example would be just with a little kid, not a narcissist. We're just giving an example with a little kid that like holds up their finger and says like, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you. That's literally sometimes how annoying it might be for the narcissist coming at you saying, hey, this isn't happening, this isn't happening. And all of a sudden you're like, stop it. It gets upset, and all of a sudden there's a reaction to an action that is annoying. A couple ways that narcissists do this. One is the aspect of dog whistling. And dog whistling is where someone uses phrases and things that are said in private, in a public setting, to produce a reaction. So in that illustration of saying like, hey, I'm not touching you, let's say at home, that makes you really frustrated and really upset because it happens all the time. And it's really distracting, really annoying. Okay. And then you go out in public and that person does that in public in front of a bunch of people. How you respond might seem over the top compared to everybody else's knowledge that they haven't seen that this has happened for the past 2 weeks, 24 hours. Okay. So that's the idea of dog whistling, where there's something done that's like annoying, that's hurtful, that's harmful inside the relationship or behind closed doors that then gets brought out in public. And when it's brought out in public, everybody's like, whoa, like, why did you respond like that? Because they haven't seen the constant abuse, the constant push behind closed doors that brought you to that place. Again, going back to the word reaction. So always going off the idea of that reaction was caused by an action. And people normally don't look at that. They don't normally see this is what's actually going on. You might find yourself in the relationship reacting in ways that you've never thought you would act before. Whether that's, lying or yelling or screaming or throwing stuff or laying hands on someone, different things. You're like, this has never been me in all the relationships that I've been in before and all the family members that I've interacted with. This is not me. What the hell is going on? Well, the thing you have to understand and remember is you have to look at those past relationships and be like, wait a second, that's actually true. This hasn't happened before. Maybe I'm not the crazy person. Maybe I'm getting put in a situation that's making me react that way. A lot of times when we're in the moment and people are reacting and they're doubting themselves and they're thinking like, wait a second, like I must be doing something wrong because of how I'm reacting to this person. They don't tend to look at the past and be like, wait a second, I've never acted this way before. I've never reacted in this type of, aggressive or violent way or whatever it might be. And when they take a look at that, they're like, wait a second, like this actually makes sense. This is not who I am. I'm reacting to the abuse that I'm being put on. Oftentimes you have the narcissist that will focus on one thing in private to make you react. And that's not to go out in public and make you react, but to get an actual reaction out of you. A lot of narcissists thrive off the idea of pushing you to the edge where all of a sudden you snap and you respond with a reaction. You've seen this a lot of times in arguments where there's a giant argument happening or where there's a really frustrating topic that keeps accelerating, and all of a sudden you snap and you start yelling back at the narcissist. Sometimes what you see is immediate calm. And they just kind of sit back. And they get calm because you're the one acting out and because in their mind they know they caused that. They caused that reaction. Sometimes at that point, that's when you'll see them pull out their phone. They'll start recording you. They'll start noting what you're doing so that they can go and they can prove to other people that you're abusive or that you're mean or that you're rude or whatever it might be. Because everyone focuses the majority of the time on the reaction when they don't understand what's the action that actually caused it. You see, narcissists, they want a reaction. They want to get you to respond in a certain way. If the narcissist can get you to react, then they've controlled that one aspect of your life. If they can get you to respond a certain way to stimuli that they put into your life, then they realize, hey, the ultimate control factor is I just created this. I created a response from another person. And so a narcissist will come into your life and they'll do that every time. And then they'll record and then they'll step back and then they'll act completely calm and make you feel like you're the crazy one. Then when you doubt yourself, they'll forgive you, or they'll say like, okay, like we'll just have to work on this later. Can't believe you did that. They'll stonewall you, like countless different things, but they'll do it to make you feel like you're the crazy one for reacting that way, when it was their fault for getting you to the place of that reaction. Now, I want to bring up a quick thing that sometimes people talk about reactive abuse and they're like, wait a second, reactive abuse is not reactive abuse, it's actually defense. And from my opinion, I don't agree. I think there's a difference. Do I think there's times where the lines could be a little bit blurred, especially when we're talking about life-threatening situations? 100%. But again, those I wouldn't call reactive abuse. I would call life-threatening situations. That would be defense. Like you are having self-defense. You are trying to make sure that you are safe emotionally, mentally, physically. In those moments when a person is actually doing reactive abuse, it's not necessarily even about their safety. Picture the person who's, not touching you, countless, like just annoying and like kind of pushing all the time to get a reaction. At that moment when you're slapping away the person's hand of being like, get away from me because I'm tired and annoyed of how much you've pushed me to that edge, that's not defense. And that's not self-defense. And that's not defending a boundary or anything like that. All that is annoyance at someone's actions against you. When someone's looking from the outside, looking in, and they see you slap that person because they've had their finger close to your face all day long, all they see is a reaction, the reactive part, and they see what looks to be like abuse. So that's why we name it a lot of times reactive abuse. It's not a lot of people that talk about it, and not a lot of people that even see it, but it is a thing that narcissists push people towards to be able to get that response and to be able to get that abuse back because they've created a reaction. The sole purpose of reactive abuse is for the narcissist to get a high off of the supply, off of what they created. They created a response. They created something that you had to do in response to their actions. Because I want you to think about this. When it comes down to it, if a narcissist, if I can actually make you react, if I can get you to get out of the norm of what you do, how you normally interact, anything like that, if I can make you react, then I can control you. And a lot of times people don't realize that and they play right into the narcissist's hand. But think about that nice and clear. If I can get you to react, then I can control you. With a narcissist, you're typically not going to be able to create space for them that's actually going to be effective because they're not going to appreciate it. And they're also not going to create space for you because your emotions are annoying, are too much, can't get fixed, are problematic because they don't go away fast enough so they can do what they want to do. How does a narcissist respond when you try to give feedback? Like when you try to give information saying, hey, this is something you did wrong, or hey, this is something you forgot, or hey, can I just tell you, like, this kind of hurts when you say this. How do they respond to you when you give them criticism? A lot of times narcissists struggle with this concept of criticism, and I want to dive into that a little bit today to have you understand and have you see a couple different perspectives. We're going to talk through a couple questions about narcissists reacting to negative or positive feedback or criticism. What does that actually look like? How does it actually come across? If you guys are new here, my name is Ben Taylor. I'm a self-aware narcissist on this channel to provide awareness, growth, healing, change, and development. I'm the founder of Raw Motivations, the creator of the Narc app, and your guide in our Escape Toxicity course, which is our $7 challenge for 7 days, over 36 videos, helping you actually break free of some of the mindsets that you've been stuck in for a period of time. So you check it out at escapetoxicity.com. You can click on the link down below, anything like that. If you don't subscribe, hit that. And so we can actually be able to interact with you more and more to be able to show you what narcissism actually looks like, how it's shown up in my life, and how it might be showing up in your relationships. So one of the things people ask is how do narcissists react to negative feedback or to criticism? You might have times in your relationship where you try to give feedback, where you try to give this information to the other person and it doesn't seem to go over well. Like there seems to be this disconnect of like you say one thing and it seems like they come back at you with 5 other things. You're like, whoa, like wait a second, I was just trying to communicate about this one piece. Well, probably the biggest piece of that is, can a narcissist actually accept negative feedback? What is actually happening there? When you give negative feedback, okay, negative feedback of being like anything. Let's give a simple illustration. You ask him to take out the trash. He doesn't take out the trash. You're like, hey, do you mind taking out the trash because you forgot last time? Boom, like huge argument that ensues just out of this. Now, this is a silly example, but for some of you, it might be the exact example that you need to hear. For others of you, it might be different. A lot of times when you give this type of negative feedback or criticism or calling out is another way, like calling a person out of not doing what they said they were going to do, then we see a big frustration that happens. One of the first pieces that happens to the narcissist is this tiny aspect of guilt. This guilt is small because they don't want to feel it. But the guilt of like, wait a second, I did say that I was going to take out the trash, but I didn't do it. So there's a guilt of like, wait a second, I did something bad. I said one thing and I didn't do it. I'm incongruent with who I actually said I was. Okay. Then there's this piece that unlocks, which is shame. I'm like, wait a second, crap. Like, I'm an awful person. Like, I can't even do a simple task. Like, I'm stupid in this area. Okay. Now, all this is very small. So I don't want you to think that the narcissist is just wallowing in this like guilt and shame for a long period of time and like, woe is them and we should be sorry for them. I'm not saying that at all. Okay. What I'm saying is some of these are the thoughts that go through in that instant. Then it switches because in that moment, I can't be wrong. I can't have that guilt. I can't deal with the fact that I'm incongruent with what I said I was going to do. That's not me. That's not the mask that I've put up. That's not the version of me that I want society to see. That's not me. So then I have to switch around in my mind saying, this person is attacking me. Like, why are they always nagging me about the trash? Why are they always putting this as being that big of a deal? Don't they understand I can take it out anytime? Why does it have to be now? Why does it have to be all these stories, all these thoughts are going to run through the narcissist's head? And at this point, it has to get flipped around so it's the other person's fault. Oftentimes, this is how we're going to put it as the blame game. Well, you don't do this. Well, I asked you to do this and you didn't respond. Well, and all these things start spewing out. And the thing that happens is over a period of time, you either take the blame and you're like, oh yeah, you're right, I'm sorry. And it kind of calms them down slightly. Or you refuse to take the blame, like, no, that's on you. Either way, you're typically going to run into the rage. Now, whether that's overt, like in your face, or whether that's more passive aggressive, the covert, and like belittling and trying to like nitpick at you to bring you down, there's this piece of rage of like, it still comes back to me and I'm pissed off. Because it can't be my fault. A lot of times a narcissist will take your criticism, your feedback, and switch it around to view you as being attacking. If you're the one that's attacking, then they can come back and attack you. Then they're the ones that can defend themselves by pushing back on you. Okay? A lot of times when narcissists respond to the negative feedback, they respond to the things that you criticize them on. This is like the cycle that they're going to go through, and it's going to go through really, really quick. It's like, how do I get away from this as fast as possible? And a lot of times people are like, well, how do I phrase it different? How do I focus on it different? And the piece with this is really hard for people to understand because it almost doesn't matter. Like, you could come into the house and you could be raging about the criticism, or you could come into the house being very meek and mild and timid, and you get the same response. You get the same reaction because it doesn't have anything to do with exactly what you're saying. Now, there's ways to communicate it that could either piss off more or piss off less, but at the same time, what you're communicating is something that's going to hit at the core. It's something that's going to hit and be like, wait a second, that actually exposes me. The narcissist hates to be exposed. And think of it in the definition of the mask. We normally talk about the mask that a narcissist has. And I want you to understand that the mask is a sense of a false version of self. Like, this is the version of me. So for me, one of my masks, one of my ideas was I'm a good person. Yes, I was cheating on my wife. Yes, I was lying to her. Yes, I was gaslighting. Yes, I was being abusive to her and other people. But in my mind, the thing that I want to put out there is I am a good person. That not only was in my mind as a mask internally, but also a mask outwardly of this is how I appear. This is how you see me. This is how I showed up in the work environment. This is how I showed up to other people. Like, this is how I would talk to people and help people in like my previous job, saying, hey, this is what I think you to do relationship wise, when I was doing the exact opposite because I was cheating on my wife. Like, huge incongruence, huge difference. But the thing is, with the mask, I have to be able to put that up so I hide who I actually am underneath. When you criticize, when you give feedback, a lot of times that cuts straight through the mask to the person underneath. Because you're no longer dealing with the words. You're dealing with the actions. You said you were going to do this, your words, the mask, but you didn't actually do it. And that turns the guilt into shame that oftentimes makes the narcissist blame you and then rage out at you because they don't want to be accountable or responsible for the things that you're holding them accountable for. When we talk about this aspect of narcissists, there is a giant pushback on your feedback. on your criticism because you are the attacker, you are the aggressor, and that has to switch in the narcissist's mind so that they don't feel bad about themselves. Okay? When you think about this aspect of avoiding criticism and avoiding feedback, a lot of times this has a huge impact in the relationship with each other because you're not able to actually get through. You're not able to give them any feedback about how they're actually showing up. You might have this in the relationship that you're currently in because you've tried to express to them multiple times, this is what I'm feeling. These are my emotions. These are what I'm struggling with. And there's no space given. Now with space, I want to be able to talk about this real quick because I struggle with this a lot. I've always struggled with this and I still struggle with it. It's getting better, but I still struggle with it. Being able to create space is giving an opportunity for the other party to express their feelings, their wants, their desires, their needs with no judgment and without trying to fix the problem, but letting it just exist there. A lot of men have a hard time with this. We want to do, we want to fix, we want to make it better or get it away from us. As a narcissist, I didn't want to hold another person's emotions. I didn't want to hold my wife's emotions. They were icky, they were frustrating, they were annoying. I was like, let's just fix this and move on so I don't have to deal with you, so I can do what I want to do. Because there's no connection, there was no care in those moments. There's no love of putting her needs first. It was just, I don't want to deal with this. When you create space for another person, you're letting that person express their emotions and letting it sit there. You're not taking it on yourself of like, oh, that's my fault, or oh, like I'm a bad person because I can't fix this. No, you're just letting it sit there. You're creating a container for the other person to be able to express who they actually are. This is absolutely essential when you're working with kids. Like as you're raising your children, this is essential that you learn how to create space for them, which means there's a lot of times that they might need space that you don't feel like you're capable of giving. This happens all the time with my daughter. At the time of this recording, she's turning 4. And so she's at the place where she needs sometimes a lot of emotional space that I don't feel like I have. Where she's going to get frustrated and cry and scream about certain things that are pissing her off that it's hard for me to be able to connect with. But I know if I don't create space for her to actually express what's actually going on, she will not learn how to be able to healthily work through those emotions. Instead, it'll just be conformity. Stop crying. Like, don't act like this. And it won't actually help her grow, heal, change, and develop into the person that she's meant to be. This is the piece about the emotional side that narcissists typically can't connect with. And that you as a parent can help your child grow, heal, and develop by helping create an emotionally safe space for your children. I know I didn't start this off talking about kids, but here we are anyways, okay? So like when we're talking about this, understanding that creating space is very helpful in this regard. With a narcissist, you're typically not going to be able to create space for them that's actually going to be effective because they're not going to appreciate it. And they're also not going to create space for you because your emotions are annoying, are too much, can't get fixed, are problematic because they don't go away fast enough so they can do what they want to do. All these things get to be an inconvenience. So, moral of the story, end of the day, as we finish up here, a narcissist will react to negative feedback over and over and over again because in their mind, they have to switch it that you're attacking them so that they don't feel bad about themselves. That's all it comes down to. If you guys want to work with me one-on-one, you can go to rawmotivations.com. If you're interested in joining the 7-day challenge and getting with other groups and communities of people that are going through the mind craziness that's actually happening as you've been walking through this toxic relationship with a covert narcissist or with overt, anything like that, and you're like, I can't even get feedback, interaction, sign up at our Escape Toxicity course, escapetoxicity.com today. You can click the link in the bio. Would love to have you join that. 7 days, $7, over 40 videos for you to be able to start getting an understanding of narcissistic personality disorder. Wondering if you're the crazy one, if you're the narcissist, like what is actually happening when you react to them. All these different pieces and more inside. escapetoxicity.com today. A narcissist is dependent on your reaction or your response or this piece of you showing them something. The reason why I bring it up like that is because the dependency piece sounds really weird. You think, well, it doesn't seem dependent on me at all because he walks away, he leaves, he triggers me, all these things. But I need you to understand he's dependent on your reaction. because he's waiting for something to happen so he feels better about himself, or he's waiting for something to happen because it's going to give him supply. Now, supply is always an interesting word. And supply is an interesting word because inside the healing community, people understand narcissists view other people as supply. Outside the healing community, people are like, whoa, you just called that person supply? How rude. You're an awful person. Be like, no, that's what we talk about when we talk about narcissistic supply. Typically, the first thing people attach it to is another person. He's getting supply from you, then he's getting supply from the new supply, then he's getting supply from the next supply, and then so on and so forth. Everyone becomes a supply station for the narcissist. And supply station being he's using and abusing to get what he wants in the moment. And as a result, he feels better in the moment because he's getting something from you. Sometimes people think, well, why doesn't he go to the next person and leave me alone? Simply because he's still getting something from you. This is where you turn into a vending machine that has no cost and has no limit. And he keeps walking up to you each and every day and pressing your buttons. And he presses a button and he gets a Coke out of the machine. So he's like, sweet, free Coke. I can keep coming back here all day. So he's going to keep coming back, pressing your buttons and getting the Coke. This is just the vending machine idea that you become a vending machine to the narcissist and simply be his supply. And you're just not supplying Coke. You're supplying like all of these reactions, all these responses that are boosting his ego, that are pumping him up, that are making him feel that he's better than you. All of these reactions are what he is dependent on to fill himself up. We see this in so many different aspects. One aspect that I think is very integral is women that are in business. You have your own business, you're an entrepreneur, you've been running business for years, and you've gotten with a guy that is less than in the business world. Simply, he makes less money, he works less, he doesn't show up, he hasn't created anything, he's freeloading off of you, however you want to put it. And you get with a guy that is making less money than you. And simply put, he's trying to get with you so he feels better about himself. But he gets with you and he doesn't feel better about himself because he realizes it's your hard work that's put you there, not his. So as a result, he starts to belittle and degrade and beat you down. Then at this point, he's starting to look for reactions and responses from you to make himself feel better about himself. You go off and you start to feel crazy. He's like, whew, yeah, you might have a huge company and business, but at least I'm the sane one. Now, he might not say that, but that's what he's thinking. Because in reality, he's trying to get a reaction from you. He's trying to get something to be able to come back from you so that he feels better about himself and you look less than. Narcissists try to belittle, degrade, and beat you down over and over and over. And it's often subtle comments, small passive-aggressive things about how you look, about what you're wearing, about what you're doing, about your confidence, about your money management, all different types of pieces that slowly chip away at you and beat you down over and over and over again. And when he's doing this, he's trying to be able to get a reaction from you. When he gets a reaction from you, you become a supply. Now, supply can be a person. Supply can simply be, you're in my ecosphere, so I'm getting supply off of you. That's what he's doing. Or it could simply be a reaction in the moment. So he might get supply from you, but he also might get supply from someone else based on the reaction that they give him, positive or negative. People oftentimes get this so confused because they think, well, I'm going to call him out. I'm going to get him. And they call him out and then they expose him and all these things. And it's still a reaction. Simply put, because he's still getting you to react. He's still getting you to respond in a way that you might not normally respond, but he still looks at it and is like, yep, I still got it. Because she's still coming after me. She's still crazy about me. We see this happen so many times that narcissists will do things to get a reaction out of you. This reaction piece that he's looking for, this supply, is all about making him feel better. This is why he becomes dependent on your response. And dependent on your response doesn't mean that he's this engaged, dependent person on you to the place where he's actually willing to change and grow. It simply means he's looking to you to get a reaction so he feels better about himself. That's it. There's not this piece of, oh, well, let me get a response from you so I can grow and change and develop. No, it's let me get a reaction. Because reaction puts him in control. Have you heard of reactive abuse? Reactive abuse is where you show up as the crazy, irate, insane person that's screaming, that's yelling, that's throwing things simply because you've been pushed to the edge so many times you finally step over the edge into crazy land. And you're like, I'm going to respond the same exact way to give you a taste of your medicine. And you think it's going to do something when in reality it doesn't, because he just looks back at you very calmly and he starts recording you. Then he starts making you think like, wait a second, I am this person. I am the abusive person. And you stay longer because you think that you have the problem. So as a result, you go to therapy to fix you, not understanding and realizing that he's the one that's caused this. In reactive abuse, most people get confused because they're focusing on the reaction, not the action that actually started the reaction to begin with. So what actually prompted your response? What actually prompted you raging out? What actually prompted you getting so upset? Was it because this is how you respond to every single person, or this is how it's been because you respond to him over and over and over again because of what he keeps doing, how he keeps pressuring and pushing you, because he's dependent on the response that you're going to give, because he's expecting you to act crazy, because when you act crazy, he feels less crazy. All it is looking for supply, reaction to what he does. How many of you have struggled with this? Like, you listen to this video and you think, hey, I think I've actually done reactive abuse. Type in me in the chat below. Just type it in to say, hey, this is me. This is something I've struggled with. It's okay. Part of it is I want people to see that it's not just you that have struggled with it. Multiple people have struggled with it. But at the end of the day, you need to realize that the reaction is your responsibility. Notice I didn't say it's your fault. I said it's your responsibility, because as you become aware of what he's actually doing, this means you become empowered to actually change it. The hard part is when you don't and you're unwilling to because you want to stay in a victimhood mentality. Yes, we're going to step on some toes. So slide over or grab your steel boots. Because part of the victimhood mentality keeps you stuck saying, I can't help my circumstance. I can't get free. I can't. And as a result, you won't. Because whatever you say that you're going to do is what you're going to do. You think you can't, therefore you never will. The victimhood mentality gives it up to the other person and abdicates your responsibility and abdicates your ability to actually change, grow, and develop you. Instead, it leaves you stuck based on your reactions, your responses to this guy, because that's what he's looking for. You to have this reaction that makes him feel better about himself and continues to put you down. Reactive abuse is real. We have to look at the action that happened before the reaction. But then we also have to look at your responsibility now that you're becoming aware that you're reacting. Now we have to work on helping you change how this is actually going down. Because otherwise he's going to push your buttons every single day and it's going to make you respond in a way that you don't want to respond. So we have to look at it differently. We have to look at it and be able to say, okay, if he's going to keep pressing this button, what's underneath the surface that's triggering you to let that button be pressed? What do we have to do to actually snip the wires of that button so it no longer activates this neurons, or no longer activates this response from you? Oftentimes it's a piece that we have to help you work on changing the story you believe. This is not a place of gaslighting. This is not a place of just rewriting history and glossing over things that have happened. No, it's helping you actually rewire, which means we're getting you back to the truth and reality, which means you don't argue with crazy. Like, you stop arguing with someone who doesn't exist in your reality, who doesn't exist in your egosphere of logic, that doesn't exist here in the moment. But instead, he's looking at himself. Instead, he's looking at what he wants, regardless of you, regardless of anything else. He's dependent on what you're going to say, what you're going to do. So you have to learn how to be independent in the things that you say and the things that you do, because otherwise you will only react to what he says and what he does. So we have to get you to a place where you help to rewire your mindset, reset how you're actually showing up, because if we don't do this, he's always going to be in control. When he's always in control, you abdicate your responsibility for it. You say, hey, I'm going to stay in victimhood and I'm no longer going to get free because he's in control of me. I can't do anything about it. It's 100% not true. But we have to bring you to a place of helping you change the story you believe, because otherwise you'll believe a lie. You'll believe another reality that he's selling to you that's not actually true, that's not actually real. This is where we have to help you get free. If you're in a toxic relationship today, you're trapped mentally, emotionally, physically, you're not sure what to do. You're not sure how to be able to get this clear up here in your mind because all you're doing in this moment is reacting to everything that's going on. Then I want you to reach out. Go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough. And the reason why I say this is because there's a video on there that I want you to be able to watch, be able to understand how to actually be free mentally and emotionally, how I actually partner with you to find your freedom and your liberation from the toxic guy that's in your life. If I can help you with that today, then go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough today.
Hey guys, Raw Motivations here. Just wanted to come and talk to you today about narcissism, but specifically about an old story, a story of Narcissists. You might have heard of this story before, and I want to kind of read an excerpt out of a book that's explaining a little bit about it and in terms of how it relates to narcissism in everyday life. So the book I'm going to be coming to you from today right now is called When Narcissism Comes to Church. It's a really good read. I'd highly recommend it. I'm halfway through, so I can't recommend the entire book, but the first half that I read is really good. It's not from just a Christian perspective. It is talking about how people get abused in churches, how people get abused with narcissism in those type of environments. Anyways, I'll talk more about that later, but wanted to talk to you really quick about this. I'm going to read this real quick for you. The myth of Narcissus tells the story well. While often told as a tale of excessive self-love, it is precisely self-love that Narcissus was lacking. It's a story of being stuck, immobilized, fixed in a death dance. In his youth, he ran free, hunting in the forest, loved and desired by young women. But he would let no one touch his heart. This is the wound of shame. One who is ashamed cannot connect and cannot become vulnerable. He is immovable, untouchable. Narcissus finds himself thirsty one day and makes his way to a clear pool for a drink. In the water he sees his reflection, an image so striking that he reaches in to embrace it. But the image is lost whenever the water is disrupted, as it is with each future effort, leaving Narcissus all the more desperate. Immobilized before the pool, he pines for the image that he will never return his love and eventually succumbs to the neglect of his basic needs. Now in here it says, Terence Real articulates the tale's meaning well. People often think of Narcissus as the symbol of excessive self-regard, but in fact he exemplifies the opposite. As the Renaissance philosopher Marsilio Finicino observed in the 1500s, Narcissus did not suffer from an overabundance of self-love, but rather from its deficiency. The myth is a parable about paralysis. The youth who first appears in restless motion is suddenly rooted in one spot, unable to leave the elusive spirit. As Finicino remarked, if Narcissus had possessed real self-love, he would have been able to leave his fascination. The curse of Narcissus is immobilization, not out of love for himself, but out of dependency upon his image. Narcissus is trapped in a vicious narcissistic feedback loop. The name Narcissus comes from the Greek narc, which means numbness, a kind of stupor. It is the sting of addiction that Narcissus experiences. It's really interesting because the one part that I highlighted and underlined, the curse of Narcissus is immobilization, but not out of love for himself, but out of dependency upon his image. You see, so often it's easy to say, narcissists love themselves so much. Narcissists love everything about them. The only way to get past, the narcissist love is for them to stop looking at themselves. And an aspect of that is true. But when you take it really full circle, what the narcissist is in love with is their image. You might have heard me talk about how image is such a high thing for a narcissist. Image is all about what they are about. And control and manipulation and gaslighting and lies all stem from this and stem around it to the point where it comes back to it of saying, hey, I have to do everything in my power to protect the image that I have created. I did that. And I've done that, and I struggle with that on a day-to-day basis sometimes as I try to go back and work through the things that have caused me to be narcissistic and that I still struggle with each and every day. That's why I'm in therapy every single week. That's why I'm in therapy working to strive to become a better person, because otherwise it's so easy to get wrapped up in an image. It's so easy to get wrapped up into a thought, into a concept, into a reality that I would build and portray and think, hey, this is who I am. But in reality, it wasn't true. A narcissist will do just about anything to be able to manipulate and control other people's perception of their image. Maybe you experienced this. Maybe you experienced it as you interacted with your narcissist and you realized, hey, this person will throw me under the bus as fast as possible if I ever come to the place where I'm going to tarnish their image. They're going to discard me as fast as possible if they start to think that I'm going to affect their status or how they appear to others. You see this in how they interact with others. You see this how they interact on social media. I want to keep a certain image. I want to keep a certain image that I'm a single to the world. So as a result, I won't friend you. I won't let you on my social media. I won't tag you on my social media. We won't show that we're in a relationship on social media. And it goes time and time again where people are like, whoa, like what's going on here? And they're like, oh, I'm just not into social media. Oh, I'm just not into this. Like, oh, no, what they are is they're consumed about their image and they want to keep their image to appear single to the rest of the world. A narcissist is all about their image. Now, I find it interesting, like how the book talks about how they're like immobilized about it, how it's such a huge aspect that they lose, that the character in the book, Narcissist, loses his sense of self-worth. He loses his taking care of himself. He loses all this stuff to keep that image secure. And when you think about it, a narcissist loses a ton of stuff inside them and hurts a ton of people around them to keep that image locked in. To keep that image redefined and secure and private and public and however they want it to be, but above all things, to protect the image. How did your narcissist, how did your toxic person protect their image around you? And at what cost did it come to you? To your well-being, to your sense of self-worth, to your wholeness, to your walk of life, to your isolation, of being isolated from your friends, from your family, of being smeared after or behind the scenes. How did the narcissist do that to you? Because again, the narcissist is only controlled and is only focused on controlling and manipulating their image. And as a result, they will walk over anybody else. They will completely devalue, discard you. They'll do anything in their power to make sure that they look like the good person. Oftentimes you'll hear them say it. I'm not a bad person. I'm a good person. I'm a good guy. I'm a good girl. Like, I'm a good person. Like, I don't understand why everybody thinks I mess up so much or why work keeps firing me in all these jobs. Like, I don't get it. I'm a really good person. It's almost like they're trying to convince themselves or convince other people. When in reality, it's not true. And it's not demonstrated by day-to-day consistent behavior. Maybe you're in a relationship where you're struggling with this other person that seems to be really consumed about their image. Maybe it's their physical looks. Maybe it's their overall demeanor. Maybe it's their knowledge. Maybe it's how they interact with people at work. Maybe it's the type of mentality, like the genre of life that they've built on that image. You might be dealing with someone who's fake. And you might be dealing with someone who has narcissistic tendencies or narcissistic traits. That's something for you to think about and something for you to consider, because a person like this will be very, very, very consumed with their image. What people believe about them, what people think about them, and how people interact with them on a day-to-day basis. You'll see this at times with partners that are split apart, where the dad now wants to appear like a loving father even though he's never cared about the kids. Where the mom wants to act like she comes into their lives and dotes on the kids when she hasn't seen them in 3 months. These are the type of things that you'll see time and time again of people that are consumed with their image and want to portray that to everybody out there. But in reality, that's not the truth of who they are and of how they've lived. If you're struggling with this, if you've been with someone is like this, I'd love to be able to talk to you and love to be able to reach out to you. If you go to my website, rawmotivations.com, click on one-on-ones, would love to have one-on-one session with you just to be able to help you work through this, to find closure, to work through to get out of a trauma bond, to work through whatever it might be as you're getting away from your narcissist. Oftentimes I provide a unique perspective coming from the aspect of a self-aware narcissist saying, hey, this is what I struggle with, this is how my mind thinks, this is probably what they're thinking, and it helps kind of close the gaps and the loops with several people whenever we talk. If you want to be a part of a community that's trying to grow and trying to encourage others, then go download the NARC app, Narcissistic Abuse Recovery Community. It's an app with over 1,000 people on it just now that are trying to work to build a better life by encouraging others, by setting up no contact, by keeping true to the truth of the facts of what is going on in their situation, because that is what's going to set them free on a day-to-day basis. That's what we try to practice. That's what we try to show of how to break free and how to live free, a new life where you're in charge and not being controlled by someone else. Would love to interact with you, love to talk to you. Please reach out and look on some of the other social media platforms. You got TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Would love to have you interact on there. Or if you're listening on the podcast, either on Apple or on Spotify, leave a rating, leave a review, because we're trying to spread the message about narcissism and to be able to tell people to bring awareness, growth, healing, and change. Thanks so much.
Have you ever wondered how a narcissist reacts when faced with rejection? When you start pushing back on them and you're like, nope, I don't want this anymore. Maybe you saw the rage or the black eyes or how much they responded to the fact when you started to reject them. Maybe you got to the place where you said, I'm blocking you, I'm ghosting you, like this isn't happening anymore. We're not communicating. And you saw how much they lashed out or how they responded in a really negative way. And so we're going to dive in and break down some of the pieces of a narcissist and rejection, the different pieces and patterns that we see around this topic. When we talk through this piece of rejection, I want to be really clear of kind of where we're talking about and what we're oscillating back and forth on. You have narcissistic personality disorder, that the underlying fear, the underlying thing that they're trying to avoid, the defense mechanism that's built on is shame avoidance. How do I avoid shame at all costs of the incongruency of the mask that I build versus what's underneath? Then a close neighbor to that inside the cluster B categories in the DSM-5 is borderline personality disorder, which goes under the aspect of the main fear and defense mechanism that comes from that is abandonment. Okay, of being afraid of being abandoned, of all those different aspects it's going to look like, but that's one of the biggest pieces under there. Now, you have narcissism with shame underneath, as like I normally describe as the raging river compelling a lot of the actions under narcissism. Then you have borderline, and the raging river underneath that is abandonment. How these two are actually connected, I would phrase as being through the stream of rejection, of where it can be very similar of that rejection brings about shame and that rejection brings about abandonment. So some of this you might be like, this sounds a little bit, it could be either way. Yes, because a lot of it, I think, crosses over when we talk through the aspect of rejection. But we're mainly going to be looking at narcissism. So when we talk through the aspect of narcissism, you need to understand, first and foremost, that narcissists have a fragile ego. Period. Like, we don't have a very strong ego. It just seems like we do. Okay, so for a narcissist, it seems like, wow, this person is amazing, or this person like knows and they have so much confidence. A lot of it is a facade. A lot of it is a mask that has been built to protect them from who they actually are inside. Okay, that's not a woe is the narcissist. I'm just saying, hey, that's where it came from. Rejection then poses this significant threat to the narcissist's self-image. You see, if I'm so amazing and you reject me, then, oh, what's wrong with me? It can't be wrong with me. It has to be something wrong with you. But there's an opportunity of like, oh, something might be wrong. Something might not look good to other people because we were together for so many years and now you've left me. Now I look like the bad person. Now I have to put it of like, you rejected me. Now I'm the victim. Like it has to go back around to the narcissist. This whole aspect of rejection ends up being a threat to their self-image, a threat to the superiority. Like the ego can't tolerate this form of criticism, can't tolerate perceived rejection, can't tolerate actual rejection. And when you reject the narcissist, a narcissist may experience what's known as narcissistic injury. Now, side note, because I believe sometimes people have this a little bit more skewed than what they actually believe. When you reject a narcissist, this isn't something that is always going to cause a narcissistic injury. You're like, yeah, I told him no today. I don't really believe a lot of that is narcissistic injury. A lot of it can be perceived as that, and a lot of people think like, oh, I told him, so therefore this happened, when in reality, a lot of times the narcissist doesn't care as much. Now, do they care? You said no, 100%. Did it cause an injury to make them spiral out? A lot of times not really. It's just like, you went up against my authority, so therefore I don't like you anymore. Like, let me give you all hell to pay, so because of what you did. But not necessarily narcissistic injury. Narcissistic injury with me would be more of these intense emotional reactions that oftentimes would come from exposure, that oftentimes would come from like completely exposing to everybody all at the same time, so they have nowhere actually to stand. This is where narcissists will have a narcissistic collapse, where they kind of spiral out. Just sometimes people talk about like narcissistic injury of like, I said no and that gave him an injury. I'm like, not really, because he doesn't connect the same way as you do about those feelings, about those emotions. Okay, so side note, random. Think of it this way. You get to a place where you're like, okay, I'm going to end this relationship with a narcissist, and all of a sudden he lashes back out with anger, with blame, with manipulation, with gaslighting, like trying to make you believe that you're at fault for the relationship. Like you're the one that's at fault for breaking you guys up. You're the one at fault for doing all these things. Okay, because the idea is like it has to be on you. It can't be on the narcissist. It has to be on you. Okay, if it's on the narcissist, then that reveals the guilt and the shame, all the things that they want to hide from. So it has to be someone else's fault. Now, one of the other pieces with rejection is moving into devaluation and discard. Like, you just rejected me, I'm going to switch from this idea of idealizing you to devaluing you. Like, you just did something that I didn't like. You just did something that pushed me away. You just did something that rejected me. So therefore, that pedestal you've been sitting on that I built for such a long period of time in the love bombing is getting taken away. It's gone. You can't get it anymore. There's no way you can get back on upon it. It's gone. Okay, so then they start to belittle you, devalue you, put you down. And you start to think like, oh, like, what did I do wrong? Well, you didn't do anything wrong. You probably held them accountable, or you tried to get free, whatever it might be. It's like, I have to do whatever I can to protect the ego. And if I do that by bringing you down lower, then I feel better about myself. We see this with guys with women who produce more, who make more money, who run businesses. They try to bring them down so they feel better about themselves. Like if that's you, you're like, hey, I can run a business really well, but I feel like I can't make a single decision. And your confidence is shot. That's why we help work with people to help them get back to that state by getting rid of the emotional bond, the trauma bond, the rumination, the triggers, the limiting beliefs that get placed upon them from the relationship that sideline them from the business that they currently run. So you're going to have a narcissist that belittles, devalues, and puts you down. Of like, what I need to do, okay, I need to bring you down. If I can't do that to the right extent, or to the extent where the narcissist feels better, then boom, you're gone. Got to be able to get rid of you. All right, think of it this way. You've communicated, hey, I need some space. I need some time to myself. Like, we're together 24/7. I need to be able to have friends. Like, I need to be able to connect. How do you respond? You might have responded of devaluing you, calling you names, asserting that you're insignificant without him, like that you need him, that I thought you loved me, all these different pieces, okay? Or it could be, sure, go ahead, that's amazing. And then you get the silent treatment for a couple of days. And you're like, was that because of this? Did I do something wrong? And it starts to make you doubt. The whole goal is like to make you doubt your reality so the narcissist can control and manipulate and manufacture their own reality that you have to be a part of. So then you move into the piece of seeking alternate sources of supply. Okay, you reject me, I'm going to put you down, I'm going to get rid of you, and I'm also going to find someone else. Okay, oftentimes this is where you see the cheating happen. You see the narcissist that's already doing this even before this, but you see the cheating happen here of like, let me seek out other people as quick as I can so that it bolsters my ego. This is why a lot of times narcissists run really well in the workplace, because the workplace, they only see a certain version of the narcissist. So like, I'm just going to go to work because at work, people respect me. Well, the reason they respect you is because you're not an abusive asshole at work. Okay, you're just that way at home. So there's a difference because someone's actually seen behind your mask and you don't like it. So therefore you have to make sure that you belittle her, that you put her down. Like this could involve narcissists like trying to find other sources of ego. This could be like finding new romantic partners. It could be attention-seeking behaviors. It could be surrounding themselves with people who just provide validation when they crave it. When they're like, "This is what I want," and people give it. Okay, much like a workplace environment. So you're gonna see different pieces of this. Like, let me just get whatever I can from whoever, however I do it. Okay. Then you'll have the last piece I want to touch on just really quick is just manipulation and also hoovering. Of like, you rejected me, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hoover you back into the relationship so that I can reject you. We've seen this happen multiple times. When you leave a narcissist, sometimes the main goal for them is just to get back with you so that they have a chance to be able to rewrite the story, to get a story that seems better in their mind than the actual truth and the facts of the situation that you left because of how they were showing up abusive. So they do whatever I can. Let me get away from this. Let me change the narrative so that I look good. But the whole idea is like to try to suck you back into the relationship, to try to get you stuck, to then go through the whole process of getting back into control over you or rejecting you at the same time. So I want you to think of this as a narcissist does not handle rejection well at all. But this is also why it's essential for as you move forward, till you get to the place where you go no contact. Because any level below that, when you reject, is typically going to get hoovered, manipulated, gaslit, all different of these things we talked about are going to come back at you. Because the narcissist wants to preserve his image. How he looks to the world is more important than how you feel about it, than the things you're struggling with. It's more important that he looks like a good person no matter what. So he's going to do whatever he can to look that way over and over and over again. Hopefully this is making sense, just breaking through and understanding the piece of rejection. If you want more help with this, you can go to rawmotivations.com. If you want to talk to me one-on-one, would love to have you jump into our Escape Toxicity Challenge. Go to escapetoxicity.com today. It's short. It's a 7-day challenge for $7 that helps get you started understanding narcissistic abuse, reactive abuse, the guilt and shame of being with a narcissist. Like, was it you? Do you have narcissistic traits? What does that look like? All those things we discuss, and also put you in the same room with other people who are going through the same questions at the same time.